What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. One of our final streams here on Fandom Empire. I believe we have 3 to go. This one, Dean and I will be live Monday, I believe. And then Tuesday will be the final Fandom Empire live stream. Really appreciate everybody who's come out and support the channel over the years. The channel as itself isn't going anywhere. It's just becoming something new. As of July the 10th, Fandom Empire gets rebranded Haddonfield and Beyond. And we got some really cool content we're already planning. We dove into a little tiny bit of Halloween Retribution over the last few weeks. And we'll be doing a deep dive on that movie, how close it was to being made, why it wasn't made, and so much more. Joining me this afternoon, I guess it's afternoon in Haddonfield, Dean Renner. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, everybody? Not a whole lot, but excited to talk about this, Michael in prison, what that could lead to. Really looking forward to getting into Halloween Retribution. And, the last couple of live streams coming up for Fandom Empire Live. Really looking forward to the kind of send off big party stream that we're going to do with everybody and bringing on a big panel and, sending it out the correct way.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a goofy, silly stream for sure.
Yeah.
Not sure how many people I'm expecting on this live stream on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Work day. We haven't done afternoon content for a long time. This past weekend was the first time we've done it in quite a while. So the topic is pretty simple today. It's really a two-topic show. We're diving into the Halloween TV series rumors that were covered by 3C Films and Cinestealth. I want to give credit to where it's deserved. Dean didn't really get to have his take on this on the weekend, and I'm excited to get into it a little bit more here and get Dean's take and dive into it a little bit with my own. And we're kind of going to discuss: does it work? Is this a viable option to go with? And what are the chances it's true or not? I think is also something to discuss. But I don't want to discredit anyone. 3C Films does a lot of good work, high quality channel, super big following. He doesn't cover things just for the sake of covering them. So he obviously believes the information. And we'll dive into that. First off, dude, obviously some of this lines up with what we've discussed in great length over the last couple of months, and then some of it doesn't. I want to see if I can I'm going to see if I can pull up the tweet. But in the meantime, what are your thoughts on just the Halloween TV series and this new batch of rumors, which, in my opinion, kind of does lend itself to the Halloween Returns aspect of things. Yeah. But I also think it can fall in line with what went on with Halloween Asylum as well. So okay. I know you heard quite a bit of the stream the other day there that Matt joined us for. But what are your thoughts on the possibility of a Halloween TV series picking up after the events of the original film, whether they're modernized, whether it's a period piece, who knows, but really diving into Loomis and allowing him to carry the show, but also, it's Michael, he's in prison. Obviously he's going to get out. How do you think, does that appeal to you? The idea of watching, 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 10 episodes, where you might not get Michael in the mask till the very end, and maybe not even very much to set up a movie or a season 2. Does that work for you? Where are you with all this? I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Where to begin? It's a little bit of a rehash of what we got in Halloween Kills with the flashback. So, oddly enough, I recently rewatched Halloween Kills on a whim the other night, and just kind of really dove into the flashback and tying that into what the series could be. I think it's a good launch point, and I think they can go a different direction and focus a lot more on Loomis, and maybe kind of get into what we don't know about how Michael was handled and treated inside of Smith's Grove. So I guess for the most part, this is like I mentioned the other day in the chat on the stream with you guys. If they approach this smart, and they're going to split up the episodes, and they're going to do some of them inside of Smith's Grove, and then some of them, out in the town or setting up other events and what else might be taking place in Haddonfield while Michael's locked up and before he escapes. I think if it's broken up and handled properly, then you can kind of bounce around and tell both stories and kind of tie everything together, in kind of like a neat and tidy fashion. And it could lead to something that I think would be pretty appealing and at least, a little bit different from what we've seen across the series. So I would be open to it. I just want to see how they handle what's being told with Michael and how do they approach Loomis? What are they going to do with him? And how much more are we going to find out like about his life? Are we going to meet his family? And maybe, what else is going on kind of in the background with Loomis that is kind of things that we've never seen before?
I think there's a conversation to be had there in terms of how far do you dive into Loomis?
Right.
I had an exchange with our buddy Wayne Gotke the other day in the chat, and he'd mentioned he wants Loomis to like remain a loner, and I understand wanting to keep with tradition to some extent. Obviously, there's some debate whether Steph Hutchinson's involved in this project or not, but he's written several comics and Halloween material where Loomis does have a family, whether it's One Good Scare, whether it's the Halloween reboot trilogy that he had proposed. In my opinion, if you're going to have him be the lead of the series and you want to raise the stakes for him, it cannot just be him. It doesn't necessarily have to be wife and kids. It could be a brother. It could be a girlfriend, a best friend. There's got to be something he's connected to. You need to ground that character a little bit, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And if you think back to, I believe it's the reboot trilogy, they played with that idea, and you basically have Michael not only tormenting Loomis just himself, but going after family and kind of diving into other aspects that would affect him. And it really is like a breaking of his psyche, and it really gets into Loomis's mind. So I think that's a really good way to approach it. And if you're going to do something like that, you should definitely, you have to set up some kind of secondary aspects to tie with Loomis to give Michael like another target as another way of kind of getting to him. It's like you said, I don't really think he should be a loner. Let's kind of build a little bit here, and let's kind of create some other things that are going to be like targets.
Want to give a shout out to Jay in the chat. He was the one that had alerted me to to Jay's credit, and it's not my job, or I don't want to cross a line here, but I know Jay knows some people that know some things, and he had actually messaged me prior to 3C Films putting out his thing, and then he messaged me again when 3C Films put out his thing. So Jay is connected in some way or shape or form, but that's his business. But I wanted to just say thanks for making me aware. I hadn't watched anything from 3C, Chris, that is, in some time. I just I haven't done a ton of YouTube watching in terms of horror stuff. Mine's been very Westeros based.
Right.
But he said, what a great topic today. Loomis and his family is very needed. Shows how deep he was having his life revolve around Michael, possibly the effects that it has on him and his family. For sure. Like, how many times do you hear about, you want to talk about grounded stories based in realism? How many times does a man or a woman, a husband or a wife, get caught up in their job and it be or just another walk of life that becomes an obsession, and it's the family that it gets taken out on? I know a lot of people are going to be very against Loomis having a family, but and it is a big if still, they're still very early in the process, which is why I don't agree with the 2025 date listed there.
Right.
I could be wrong, and they could get it out, great, all the power to them if they do manage to. But like you and I have been saying for some time, I would much rather them take their time and do it properly than try to hit some target date next year. I really think that that Loomis having some sort of familia connection would just add a lot, and it would allow you to go outside the walls of the prison or the maximum security prison and dive into Haddonfield, Russellville, wherever Loomis is stationed at this time. And also it allows you to, like, if your goal here is to set up, one season of TV into a movie, which I have my doubts on. It's just really hard to go from TV to movie. There's not a lot of people that successfully do it. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't go from TV series to straight to streaming movie, like a 2-hour movie that's, streaming, or maybe goes day and date with a theatrical release and streaming release, and those that want to see it on the big screen have the option for it. But I also think just setting up a season 2 makes a lot of sense as well. And if it's Stars involved or Hulu's not a thing up here in Canada. Paramount Plus, I think that you know, one of the goals here is they stretch these things out to keep the subscribers coming in and to keep the money flowing, right? So if it's 8 episodes, you know, you're getting 2 months potentially there. If it's 10 episodes, you're getting 3 months there. So I do think there's a financial aspect to that I think works for whatever one of these companies secures the rights to air the series. But like for you personally, as a Halloween fan, man, I know we're very much going through the weeds on the Taking Shape 2 and preparing for a lot of content that we have coming up. But like, do you personally want to see Loomis have a family, or is there a way to do this where he's still, you know, loner Loomis?
I think there's probably ways to do both. It just comes down to creative writing, which is something I mention a lot. I think even if he doesn't have to have this, you know, larger extended family. He can have a wife and a kid, and you can leave it just at that. That gives Michael a secondary target. That's going to be like a draw for Loomis. If he finds out Michael's on the hunt for his family, then obviously that's going to put him on high alert, and that's going to have him going after Michael. So you can approach it like that, or you can still you can have Loomis as is, and you can try your best to tell yet another telling of the way that he's handling Michael this time around. You know, we've seen it from Halloween 2 to Halloween 6, and then, you know, arguably in Rob Zombie's, Halloween and Halloween 2. But we've mentioned that's kind of a different take on his character. So I think you should probably separate the two. I think they want to go back to basics here and stick to more of the Loomis that we know from the beginning of the series. So, like I said, I think it can be handled either way. But to get into the super chat in a minute, I think they make a pretty good point there. It kind of does depend on the actor, and who's going to portray the character. But, you know, I think it's manageable. And, like it says there, it depends on if the actor's even capable themselves. So, it'll be interesting to see which direction it goes. I would almost rather see him have some kind of, like you said, familial, some kind of extra tie-in that's going to create another target and something else for Michael to kind of go after that's going to be like a lure for Loomis.
Not sure what is showing on screen right now. I'm seeing something different from you because I'm trying to edit it. Jerry, what's going on, buddy? Long time no see. Well, not really. We've seen you relatively recently, but hope you're well. He sends in a $10 super chat. That's always great. We appreciate the support. Getting into Loomis's backstory depends on the actor, as Dean said. If it's someone with great acting ability, sure, I'd suggest Richard Schiff. I'd have to look at. I'm gonna Google who Richard Schiff is. The name sounds familiar. It depends if the actor's capable. You know, the one thing I don't want to see people get hung up on is if they cast someone with hair.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
Like, who cares? As long as they're not casting some 25, 30-year-old to play the part, who gives a shit? You know, have the guy be late 40s to early 60s. And, you know, being a character actor would be suggested, you know, someone with experience, someone who can carry the series. Now, where this differs from the stuff that we've heard is the stuff that we've heard, Loomis wasn't the lead, but rather part of an ensemble cast with a focus on him. If he is your primary lead, if he's your, Dr. House, if you will, if you've ever seen House, then, I think that changes things. I think you need to have Loomis's family involved, or have some sort of, you have to have stakes that aren't just him. You have to have something to care about that isn't just him. And the list of possible actors is, and it's something that I think we'll have some fun doing some videos on when we launch Haddonfield and Beyond, but just cast someone strong, someone who can carry the part, someone who keeps you wanting to come back week to week, if that's how they release the episodes. And don't get caught up on if he looks like Donald Pleasance. I know you don't want a Malcolm McDowell type role,
Right.
but don't get caught up on if he's Donald Pleasance. What I would do is have him channel some of Donald Pleasance, but also put his own spin on it to make the character his own. I know people don't like, having recast, but there's a bunch of fine examples in Hollywood where if it's not a recast, it's someone else playing that same role in a different rendition of the story that turned out great. Just to name a few off the top, like the Joker after Jack Nicholson has had two.
Right.
You had Heath Ledger, and then you had Joaquin Phoenix. Both nailed it, both in their own way. So that's one. In Star Wars, you had Ewan McGregor play a younger Obi-Wan Kenobi. Say what you want about prequels, but he was the most positive thing to come from that stuff. So you're seeing it in House of the Dragon right now, where you had a bunch of time jumps in the first season, and you had, Rhaenyra and Alicent played by two different actresses, and now two other performers play them. And it can work if you cast correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. If you take a look back at The Dark Knight when that was coming out, Heath Ledger gets announced as Joker, and people hated it. And then film comes out, and now he's, I would say, universally pretty much loved in that part. So it's like you said, it can work. It's got to be cast right. It's got to be well done. And I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of their own spin on it. But like you mentioned, kind of channeling what we got from Donald Pleasance, staying true to the character, trying not to kind of break too far from the mold. But, if this is going to be some kind of new timeline or a new story of some sort, at least let's handle it with care, and let's, pay homage to the character, but, introduce some things that you might think, okay, maybe this is something that Loomis would have done, or these are some avenues that he would have gone down. So let's do our best to kind of play both sides here. Let's stay true to the character, but let's also kind of bring something new.
Again, Jerry, we really appreciate the super chat, man.
Yeah.
Costs of running a channel are not cheap if you want to try to do it in the way that we're doing it. And we strongly encourage anybody who wants to support the channel, send in a super chat. Check us out on Patreon. Patreon content is coming back. I know our previous Halloween show was titled Lambkin Lane for years. It was something that we, really invested in. Our new Patreon Halloween show is titled after our Halloween Facebook group that we run, The Legacy of Halloween. So one of the things we're going to do, you might remember we launched a Legacy of Halloween YouTube channel. So for that Patreon content, we're going to snip out parts of it, put it over on that Legacy of Halloween YouTube channel, and then you'll be able to check out the full versions of them on Patreon. We really do appreciate the support, and to our sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do everything that we do. Jerry sends in a $20 super chat. Focus a bit on Michael's parents. Imagine good people, normal, grounded, seeing a darkness take their son away, or take over their son. They try everything, but slowly the evil takes over. The good people overwhelmed by dark situations. See, no, the one thing that for the record, I've not heard a rumor on this. So I do not want to say that, hey, this is a possibility. I mean, it is, because the show hasn't came out yet. But if the show takes place after Halloween 1, and you want to dive more into like Loomis's exploration,
right?
Two things I'd love to hear your take on this, Dean. And I know you have some notes that you wrote down to go over as well. But we like, how about flashbacks? How about I'm not saying you'd have to do it Rob Zombie-esque, but let's go back and see Loomis trying to get through to Michael, see Loomis for the first time on screen, really, if you don't count Rob Zombie's Halloween, talk to Michael's parents, see if there's any pathway through there. People love talking about the Judith thing, right? Like, there might be something to explore there, not necessarily with Judith still being alive, but what happened, and
Hmm.
the after effects of that on the family, and that for me is an option, is to have moments in the series. Like there's a bunch of like mystery dramas out there. Jade and I are watching one right now with Jennifer Gardner and Nikolai Coster-Waldau from Game of Thrones, and it's called I think it's The Last Thing He Said to Me.
Okay.
A bunch of good character actors in it, and it starts off really slow, but the further you get into it, the more they start hooking you in and wanting to see more. And a
Right.
lot of that show is exposition in flashback.
Okay.
And I think that is a way that you can do this, but you need to do it in a way that's not boring, right?
Hmm.
So I think that should be on the table. The other thing I do is, if we're going to see Michael in current time in prison, don't ever show his face. We don't
No.
need to see his face. There are a
Hmm.
bunch of clever ways that you can shoot this that
Hmm.
really will lend itself to some great cinematography, to just never show his face clear as day.
Yeah.
That way you're not seeing this guy for 6, 7, 8, 9 episodes before he dons the white mask. You're seeing some, shape, if you will, in an orange jumpsuit or a blue jumpsuit or whatever they decide to make it.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of doing it that way. I think if you have his face too far, like too out there too much, or even at all, it could lessen the impact of him finally donning it. Keeping in mind, this is all rumor. I don't think anybody should take this as ironclad, but it would be foolish of me to not recognize that, Cinestealth has gotten a bunch right in the past. It lines up with a lot of what Dean and I've heard. Not everything, but it lines up with a lot of things we heard, and we do trust the sources that we use. And then 3C Films, again, he doesn't cover any Tom, Dick, and Harry story. He's covering it for a reason. He's covering it because to some extent he believes it. And I think people should definitely be taking this rumor seriously as a possibility of what's to come, at least parts of it. Your thoughts, though, on how much to show Michael before he escapes at the end, and how far you would dive into flashback material?
I'm gonna steal a line from Scream of all movies, and that is there are certain rules you must abide by when doing a Halloween film. Um, Oddly enough, I was listening to the interview after Halloween Retribution, and that's a topic that comes up on that. So we will get into that with Retribution once we get to that when Haddonfield and Beyond launches. But applying that here, there's definitely certain rules that you have to stick to. Do not show his face. Do not have him talk. These are characteristics of Michael that humanize him a little bit too much, and that's going to break that. And then, like you said, that's going to take away from the impact once he breaks out and he's finally in the coveralls, the mask, and we're getting Michael as Michael. What I want to see with flashbacks, I love that idea. I love the idea of going back. We're seeing Loomis in a room, whether they're trying to record the conversations or it's just him talking to Michael and trying to get through to him. Things like that, for me at least, they're going to be like a big draw. I kind of want to see things like that. Let's see how far Loomis tries to go. Let's see, does he discover anything? We mentioned the parents here in the super chat. That was an idea that I pitched way back a few months ago with my series pitch was, maybe Michael's parents kind of have some kind of small play where certain incidents happened, and that's what led to Michael being violent, and then eventually, attacking or almost killing Judith, and then that's what gets him sent away because the parents finally just have broken and they don't know what to do anymore. They're kind of at a loss, and they think the only solution is incarceration. So, that's something that could come into play, and maybe the parents are there. Maybe the parents are at Smith's Grove with Loomis while he's trying to talk to Michael. It's kind of like almost like a group visitation. I don't know how well that would mesh with, okay, this is his doctor and the doctor's in there. This is a medical, kind of approach. And, are the parents really supposed to be present while he's in there talking to, their son and, things like that. But I think bringing the parents into it, that's something that would be new. We only get a glimpse of Michael's parents in the original. And since then, they're absent throughout the rest of the series. So, here's a chance to kind of bring them in. Um, Judith, if they're going to pick up from 78, then Judith is dead. But I'm going to pick here from Wayne's theory a little bit. Maybe they find Judith's diary. Maybe Judith's diary comes in and maybe she's written things down and she has some kind of thoughts and she saw some kind of change in Michael as a young child. And she's writing this down in her diary. And this is kind of things that they can read and kind of look into and explore that give them a little bit of a better idea on maybe what they're dealing with Michael. And, there's just so many possibilities. So there's a couple things you can kind of pick from there. And, it could definitely kind of bring things together and create some kind of new, interesting kind of avenues to go down to see, like, trying to get into the mind of Michael.
Jerry says if Loomis has a session with Michael, usually prisons have a partition between prisoner and visitor. Use that to cover Michael's face, shoot from behind, keep him in the shadows. I love the idea of keeping him in the shadows because he's the shape, right? And you can really, dive into that and
you can play on that
for sure. You can have that sort of be his presence while in the prison, and people could die in the prison. There could be prison riots where he gets involved. Maybe he even incites it. Let's not forget. While Michael is a mass serial killer, dude's also smart as shit.
Yeah,
so
very intelligent.
Able to play off of that a little bit in prison from even behind would be, an interesting and unique take on it. I just think the possibilities are really endless in terms of where it could go. Quick thoughts on this, though, Dean. I don't know what you watch for TV and stuff, but like Stars is like an add-on in Canada. You can't get it like just by itself. Hulu, you cannot get it all in Canada. Paramount Plus, you can. Do any of these stand out to you for any reason, and do you have a hope of where it might go?
I'll start with Hulu. I do have it, but I rarely watch it. I don't go back to it much. Every now and then something pops up on there that I might be interested in, but not very often. So for me, I would rule out Hulu right off the top. The other day I mentioned Stars. They kind of lack in the horror department. Even if you go on and you look through their horror section for movies, it's more on the lower tier. So they don't have a lot to offer when it comes to like horror content. However, with that being said, this gives them a chance to kind of bring something to their platform, which could be a big draw. And then that could open the door to maybe hook in viewers for more and more. And then if the series is going to go beyond one season or a season and a movie, it's like kind of, you mentioned earlier, doing a straight to streaming kind of movie. The series could lead up to that. And then there's a 2-hour straight to streaming film on the same network. So I think Stars, if they're really trying to kind of capitalize on the horror genre, that could be a good that could be a good place for them to start. And then Paramount Plus is huge and they would have the money and they would be able to kind of carry this thing. So I think if you're going based off budget, if you put it on Paramount Plus, then you get definitely season 1. If they do a movie that goes straight to streaming and it ends up on Paramount Plus, they can definitely afford it. And if they're going to expand beyond, one season, they can do that as well. So I think Paramount Plus, just based off those 3 choices, is probably number 1, with Stars coming in, behind them at number 2. And then Hulu, just by default would end up at number 3. But I don't know that Hulu really kind of has the audience for it. And you mentioned, restrictions on area. Like you don't get Hulu in Canada, so that's going to limit their market right there. So I think, like I said, Paramount Plus number 1, Stars number 2. They have the widest reach of an audience. So that's probably where I would look.
I definitely look at someone that's willing to invest their own money into it. But then again, you're inviting more chefs into the kitchen. There's already multiple chefs in the kitchen. Things get dicey. Things can get caught in development hell. So yeah, before we go any further, though, I want to take a moment and advertise some of the content that we have coming up when Haddonfield Beyond launches. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this series of rumors compared to the rumors that Dean and I have covered and see where they cross over. Rumors versus rumors. How much of it is the same? So we're going to put together a little chart and try to get the arrows going and see what was covered from Cinestealth and 3C Films and see what we covered and see how much of it lines up. And quite a bit of it does, but some of it doesn't. So it makes me curious where this possibly could be going. And none of it could end up being true. You just don't know with these things. But then we're also going to do a deep dive into Halloween Retribution, why it was canceled, one word, dimension, and we'll dive fully into that.
Nailed it.
We're also going to talk about what the story was, the setting, what it looked like the film was going to be, as well as what would you have rather, them to go forward with Halloween Retribution or to take Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 as is. Those are 4 pieces of content that we have coming as soon as Haddonfield and Beyond launches. They'll probably roll out within the first 2 weeks, and we're looking forward to it. So please stay tuned for that. Cinestealth goes on to mention this would indicate a period piece unless there's a time jump or something. This lines up right here. This one was what we've heard. We heard there is no Laurie Strode in this at all. And then the casting rumor that he doesn't want to mention, but I'm going to put it out there. 1 second. We'll start with this, man. The Laurie Strode thing. In your opinion, is that the right way to go?
I think it depends on, I guess, how much of the fan base you're trying to reach. But we just got a trilogy that featured her pretty heavily, minus kills. She's kind of sidelined, but she's still present. She's still kind of tossed in throughout basically the whole thing. So I think a lot of people might be a little burned out. I know I am. I'm perfectly fine without Laurie Strode. You want to mention her name and kind of, make it known that she's still at least kind of relevant to the conversation. You could do that, but I don't think we need to kind of rehash her as another character unless she's going to be very low level and kind of just like a reference character. Like maybe people are talking to her because of what she went through, on the night of 78. So, I'm really burned down on Laurie. I don't think it's necessary. But like I said, if she's going to be included in any way, I would say kind of keep her very bottom level and, background and only there for reference. And they only talk to her every now and then to kind of, maybe just ask her about 78 and maybe things she might have noticed about Michael, even though she was pretty much kind of like scared out of her mind and on the run the whole time. But, that's if it was me, that's how I would handle it.
The casting rumor, Cinestealth says, I also heard a casting rumor, but I'm going to sit on it for a little bit to see if anything comes out in the meantime that can validate it. So I heard that the casting rumor, I don't know if he wants me to attach his name to it, so I'm not going to do it. But if you do, if you're out there and you're listening live or after the fact, let me know and I'll make sure we make up for where it came from. Is Sydney Sweeney, who is a up and coming an actress. She was in Immaculate, Madam Web, Anybody But You, The Rolling Stones, Angry, Euphoria, that was a big one. The White Lotus, another one. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Handmaid's Tale. So she does have a resume behind her back. But then the question becomes, she's fairly young. To me, she's probably not playing someone in the prison. So then that would indicate that, the whole thing's not going to be based in the prison, nor should it be. I think you should be out there getting to know the people in, whether it's Haddonfield, Russellville, both. You and I have been harping on this train for months now that make us care about characters who you're going to either kill or take something from, so that when it happens, it's not, with all due respect to the people that love this franchise, that it's not Friday the 13th canon fodder where you
Right.
Know a character for 5 minutes of screen time, they die, and it's like, oh well, who gives a shit?
Right. Yeah. If they're going to go with Sydney Sweeney, I saw Immaculate. I own it. Um, it's an interesting movie. You have to kind of really be into kind of religious horror to kind of be able to get through it. That kind of, it works for me. So I was definitely intrigued and interested. I want to give it a second watch, but as far as her performance, I think she handled it really, really well. Like you mentioned, she's got a pretty good resume under her belt. So, if she's an option, I say bring her in, make her some kind of character within Haddonfield, and maybe that's somebody that we either follow or eventually she becomes a victim to Michael. But like we said, countless times here, don't make her just like a throwaway. Don't bring her in and out every now and then. We see her a little bit, then she's killed off and we don't care. Build up a little bit of a story around her, bring her in, give her a chance. And, her name, it's out there. It's in, pop culture right now. So it could be a draw. So maybe if people hear that Sydney Sweeney's a part of it, and then you get some casting around her, it could spark some interest and bring some people in who might not be all that familiar with Halloween, or they just want to see Sydney Sweeney. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I also checked out Richard Schiff there, Jerry,
Oh,
and
right.
I have seen him in a bunch of things. He'd be a quality choice. I might butcher this guy's last name, but David Morse or David Morsey. I don't know how he pronounces it.
Hmm.
Good character actor, been in a shit ton of things. I think he'd make another good Loomis. I'll pull him up. So I think you'd know him by his face.
Probably by face. Yeah. I know way more people by face than I do by name.
Let's see if I can pull this up here. One moment.
Yeah. Briefly, I think I kind of overlooked it a little bit. I want to go back to shooting Michael, keeping him in. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He was in Disturbia. He was the neighbor in Disturbia. Yeah, great character actor.
Yeah, I think someone that can have the range of someone like him. Like, it doesn't need to be an A-lister, but it needs to be someone that can really pull the story along and really dive into a character.
Yeah. I would go with him. That's I think a really good choice. Recognizable face. I think he has a little bit of horror behind him too. So I think that's something that could work. But as far as how to handle Michael, keep him in the shadows, hide his face. Maybe go. I think it's Halloween 2 flashback. They show him as a kid, but he's kind of facing the window. You turn that seat looking more out the window, and it almost comes off like he's ignoring Loomis, but Loomis is there talking to him and trying to get through to him. But there you go. It's a very easy way to kind of turn him away from the camera, hide his face, and you're not giving away too much.
Yeah, I'd love to do like a video where we come together and cut it down into like 10 to 15 minutes, and we just give our top 5 picks for someone to play a Loomis. I know a lot of people are so obsessed with like lookalikes, and just by appearance wise, I think David Morsey could pull off the role. But like to me, it's all about acting. It's about how much they can do, and I think that's where the focus should be. Any other thoughts in terms of what Cinestel put out here for the Halloween news?
I like the idea of a period piece, but then you get budget. Budget comes into it, and it becomes really expensive. If we look at Crystal Lake and all the hell that they went through, what was it, $10 million an episode or something? It was like overall
it ballooned to like $85 million over 8 episodes, and I can tell you right now, there is not a chance in hell they're going to spend $85 million on a 8-episode Halloween series. No way. They will be lucky to spend half of that. Yeah.
So I think if you're going to do a period piece, I think you focus on one episode. You take one episode, you set that in your time period, and you focus the entire episode around that, whatever it might be. Maybe that's a flashback episode to, I don't know, time in the prison with a very young Michael, and we're kind of bouncing back and forth between Michael as a kid, and then maybe Loomis is consulting the parents, and that whole episode is kind of somewhat based, even if half the episode's like that, and then, filler around the rest of the town. But things like that. So period piece, as much as I love it, the expense comes into play. And like you said, I don't think 80 to $85 million is getting spent for this series.
Hey, don't get me wrong, I'd love it. Sink
Yeah.
all
Oh,
you can, make
100%.
it as good as you can. But I just the way Trancas operates, like it's not likely. I think people need to
Yeah.
understand that Halloween kills. Halloween 2018, Halloween kills, Halloween ends. This is without marketing, by the way. I know people love to spew out numbers
Mhm.
on social media that aren't accurate. But like the three of those movies combined, just in terms of production costs, you're looking at less than $60 million between the three.
Yeah.
Less than 60 million. Maybe not by much, but like, so the idea that they would spend 70 or 80 or 85 million on 8 episodes of Halloween, it's not going to happen. So you got to be practical in terms of how you go about this. That being said, it'd be really cool to see a maximum security prison back in the late 70s or early 80s,
Hmm.
and it would give you the ability to make it sort of look, dark and dungy and,
Yeah.
uh, not up to date, if you will, to really play into the shadow aspect of it all and the bad lighting
Right.
aspect of it all. I'm pretty sure maximum security prisons nowadays don't look like they did in
No.
1980.
No. I'd like to see that. If they could find a location and they could stage it and do a lot of set deck to kind of just age it and make it look, the part. Um, it's an interesting and definitely the setting itself would play into, like you said, the shadows and the low lighting and really kind of bring an atmosphere to whatever it was they were doing. It's just a matter of finding that location and how much budget do they have to pour into it in order to create that.
Time will tell. There's so much more to dive into. The fact that Halloween TV series rumors are starting to be covered by people like Sinister Stealth, people like 3C Films, lets
Hmm.
you know that the I don't want to call it leaking, but the drips are starting. And
Hmm.
my guess is before too long, we'll have an idea which way this is heading. And I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Oh yeah.
Time will tell, and we're going to cover it all on Haddonfield and Beyond, and so much more. If you like Halloween content, then you're going to want to tune into a lot of that stuff. And instead of
Hmm.
sitting through a 5 or 6 minute intro, those on podcatchers will still be able to catch a raw recording of Tonight in Haddonfield. But most of you will be sitting down to check out, 8 to 20 minute videos on the channel that are
Yeah.
basically one subject based. So be on the lookout for that. And then we'll still do live streams, but you're probably looking at about one a month.
Hmm.
Uh, in the meantime, dude,
Yeah.
you got another show and tell ready for us
That
before
I
we
do.
get out of here for the afternoon.
Yeah. So I figure it's summer and we're kind of getting into the middle of it. And what's something that I haven't covered yet? So let's go summer slasher. And there's a little bit of controversy kind of in the boutique label kind of market surrounding these movies. Um, I do have a trio. It's a trilogy. Very sought after. There is an alternative to getting what I have here. They come from an overseas boutique. They're a lot lower in what they offer. But without further ado, what I have here for everybody today is what I call the holy trinity of Scream Factory releases. And it's a doozy. This took me a while to acquire, but I do have them here. And not that they're great movies, but I will get into why they are so kind of sought after at the moment. But we do have the complete Sleepaway Camp trilogy. Great, fun, kind of B, independent, low budget, just fun, schlocky camp slasher horror. So the original is very much still readily available from Scream Factory. It will not come with the slipcover. This took me a while to get. Although I'm not happy with the seller that sold it to me because he kind of left out a very important detail in the fact that he was a heavy smoker. So when I got this thing, it reeked of cigarette smoke. So there is a trick. You take a Ziploc bag, you throw a couple of dryer sheets in it, you stuff in the slipcover, and that should pull all of the gross smell out of the cardboard and at least get rid of that for you. But yeah, so I did manage to acquire the first Sleepaway Camp with the slipcover. Two separate occasions, I bought the movie and then tracked down a slip at a later date. And then also for 2 and 3, I paid a pretty penny to get my hands on these because I will get into why. And then after the fact, I had to do the same thing. I had to track down slipcovers for both of these. I didn't really break the bank on getting the slips, but yeah, I was able to get these for a fairly decent price. I total, you're looking at probably a cost of around $150 that I spent to get my hands on these. And you're probably thinking, why? Why would anybody drop $150 on these two movies with slipcovers and all of that? So I guess real quick, I'll dive into like the special features before I get into kind of the backstory. But all three of these, they came from Scream Factory, I believe, back in about 2013. They have similar features on all three, but 2 and 3 have a part 1 and a part 2 kind of behind the scenes featurette. So part 1 was done with a new 2K scan of the original camera negative. And there's a feature here on how they restored it. So that was really cool to see. Scream Factory is able to get, I think it's about 9 or 10 reels that the whole movie comes on. And they were able to digitally restore that and do a nice restoration. There is an original commentary on here. Features Felissa Rose, Jeff Hayes, and the director-writer, Robert Hiltzik. There's new interviews with the cast and crew, a Sleepaway Camp scrapbook, a very short film, what is that? Judy by Jeff Hayes. Judy is one of the characters, the theatrical trailer, and more. And then for parts 2 and 3, they went and did a Tale of Two Sequels because these were shot back to back. So you have a Tale of Two Sequels parts, I believe, 2 and 3. So they actually might cover the first one on the first movie. They don't, unless it's a feature I missed. But anyway. And then there's interviews, a couple of the actors, there's trailers, promos, some deleted footage, and a little bit of kind of extra footage and little background stuff because there's not much available as far as like cut footage and extras for these two titles. So that kind of covers the special features and what we got on those. To get into the backstory, to sum it up, Cliff McMillan has kind of confirmed this. When he was at Scream Factory, Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 were something that they acquired and wanted to put out. They put them out. And then they only had the rights for kind of a limited amount of time. And when that agreement expired, they just opted not to renew it. So these came in and out of print very quickly. And then since then, they have been very, very hard to come by. There's a UK-based boutique label called 88 Films, if anyone's not familiar with them. They managed to get the rights for overseas, and I think they have 2 Blu-rays for 2 and 3 that you can find. They're region B locked. They're on the cheaper level, so I don't know if they come with like the special features that were featured on those, but you can at least get the movies that way. But prior to these Scream Factory releases, these came in a DVD box set. The DVD box set came out years ago. It was recalled due to the packaging. There was a kind of a copyright infringement issue with the American Red Cross because the box art was made to look like basically a medical kit, and it had the Red Cross on it. So the American Red Cross kind of stepped in and said, you can't use that for your packaging. So some of those box sets got recalled. They had to redo the packaging and then re-release that. So it's kind of had a kind of shaky history of release for these movies, and now they're out of print. And as far as I know, Kino Lorber acquired the rights for both of those, for at least parts 2 and 3. I think Scream Factory still has part 1. Parts 2 and 3 went to Kino Lorber. I think they got those in kind of like a bundle deal across a multiple amount of titles. So they just kind of picked up the rights along with a bunch of other stuff. And I think it's been put on Twitter. They have no interest in releasing Sleepaway 2 and 3. So these are kind of locked up with Kino Lorber. No release in sight. They have no interest in doing it. I don't know if the rights are going to expire and they're going to sell them off to somebody else that might do it. I don't even know what kind of source material there is for 2 and 3 still, besides the fact that these got digital upgrades from Scream Factory. So there's at least digital masters out there that they could get sold off. They could get digital 4K upgrades if they decided to go 4K. If not, they could just do, new Blu-ray editions for parts 2 and 3, and somebody else could put them out. But it's been a rocky road for Sleepaway Camp. And with that being said, I will probably and most likely never get rid of this trilogy right here. So, like I said, these are just kind of fun camp slasher, schlocky B-horror, but this, for the release history and kind of the scarcity of trying to get something like this, I will be holding on to these for a very long time. And I hope that these do get, an upgraded release sometime soon from somebody. But yeah, that is my little kind of history lesson and show and tell for the day on the Sleepaway Camp 1 through 3 trilogy set from Scream Factory.
And those of you that are worried that Dean's show and tell or show, share, and slash is just going to disappear, it won't. They will be their own videos finally coming up. If you're a Patreon supporter, I need to sit down and figure out the tier stuff still. We're not charging an arm and a leg. We don't want this to be a money grab. And even though we've moved our Westeros content, which is Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, to a different channel, our Star Wars content's been moved to a different channel. Those two channels, along with Haddonfield and Beyond, when it replaces Fandom Empire, all the Patreon content from those channels will go to the same Patreon. So it will still be an all-inclusive Patreon based off of all of our channels. But if you are a Patreon supporter at some tier, you will be able to check out the live recording of a lot of this material in its full-length form, which will also include show, share, and slash. But if you don't want to do that, then just stay tuned for the videos. I did like the little history lesson Dean gave there. It wasn't just about the physical content itself, but a story behind it. I think those will make for some great videos moving forward. That being said, I think it is time to wrap things up and bid bon voyage for this afternoon. We're right around an hour here. Dean, final thoughts?
I'm really looking forward to our little kind of rumor versus rumor comparison episode that we're going to do. I really want to see like what have we come across that compares to what's coming out now, what lines up and what doesn't. And then I'm going to throw a little prediction out there. I think, and it's probably pretty reasonable. I would like to think that by October this year, we should probably get some sort of official announcement and something way more concrete to look forward to. What that might be, I don't know. But I think by October this year, I think we'll finally get something like really, really kind of etched in stone about this series coming up.
Yeah, I think official announcements by October are likely. I think we'll continue to see places like 3C Films, Cinestealth, Jess Snyder, hopefully even us come out with pretty concrete material before then. But time will tell. It could be something completely different than what we've speculated on here today. You just never know what's going to happen. Please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all in order to keep up to date with all of our future content. Sorry for the afternoon show. I know it doesn't work for a lot of people. It was a lot better for me today, though, so it's greatly appreciated. Big thanks to Jerry, who sent in some generous super chats today, and everybody else who tuned in. To our patrons, thank you. Wouldn't be here without you or our channel sponsors. Jesse, Storytime Spectacular. Jason with Backtrack Cinema. Ryan with Colleague Nation. That channel has really taken off, by the way, if you're a NASCAR fan. And Matt and Chris. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much for the support that you offer. Haddonfield and Beyond. It is coming, much like the Boogeyman. July the 10th. Tune into that. July the 9th. Join us for what's supposed to be a 3-hour farewell stream to Fandom Empire Live with a bunch of faces from the past and a look to the future. Happy July the 4th to everybody out there. Have a great holiday tomorrow and this weekend, and we'll see you soon.